to Starter Marriage, a show where we explore modern marriage from every angle, including our own relationship. I'm Allison Raskin, a New York Times bestselling author, relationship coach, and mental health advocate who has somehow convinced my husband to do this show with me.
And I'm John Blakesley, an ex-CIA officer turned writer, and I never thought I would marry a social media influencer.
Do you think that I count as a social media influencer?
Yeah, absolutely. Why wouldn't you?
Well, I don't know. I'm only in 200K on Instagram.
That's a social media influencer. People count as influencers with far less.
Really? But now do you view me as an influencer or as a writer who has a following?
I never think about it.
I think about it all the time.
No, I do think of you more as a writer.
Okay.
But
I often, when I'm trying to explain my career to people, I go, I came up on the internet, and I don't think anyone knows what that means.
It makes you sound very old. I came up on the internet. Dial up.
It's also funny because I was so bad at the internet. Like I didn't have a MySpace. I never was chatting, AOL chatting with people.
Yeah.
I didn't engage with the internet. And then suddenly, because I got hired at BuzzFeed, it was oh, I have to make this thing my life.
Right.
I only really started using Instagram right around when I got hired at BuzzFeed.
So you think your true self is no technology, living in the woods?
I do love animal videos on TikTok.
Yeah, you do love TikTok.
But I don't even know if I do anymore. It's just I'm used to. I don't know
you're
what
just
else.
addicted.
I'm just addicted.
I can
to
tell. You just have this blank face, and you just go. You're just swiping through.
No, sometimes I have a look of delight.
Ha ha ha! Yes, that's very good. Next one. Ha 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 ha. Okay. Yep. Yes, it's a trend. You're a zombie.
What's gone wrong on my For You page is that I don't know where the animals went. It's now just a lot of therapy talk.
Ugh.
Right. Well, I guess we shouldn't say that considering what this show is.
Yeah.
We have a very personal episode for everyone today.
Yeah.
As a relationship coach, I've noticed that a lot of people get pretty hung up on the story of the couple, right? And are we meant to be because of this story, or we have such a good story we have to stay together, rather than focusing more on the nuts and bolts of what the actual day-to-day relationship dynamic is.
Right.
And so, as you know, one of my main crusades in life is to get people to stop romanticizing romance.
Including me.
Yeah.
I am your husband, constantly trying to be a romantic. Women would kill for a romantic husband, and you're stop.
What was the last romantic thing you did?
Well, I'm always trying to do stuff, and you're rebuffing me.
Well, it was very sweet, though. The other night, I asked for some water. And asked is a light word. I demanded some water, as I do at night. And then I jokingly said, and 7 compliments. Mm-hmm. And then you went and got the water, and I thought that was just a joke. But then you gave me 7 compliments.
I did give you 7 compliments.
That was very nice. And I said 7 unique compliments.
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, you did. They had to be original. But, okay, so if you were a different type of girl, you might get more traditionally romantic things that I would try to throw your way. Mm-hmm. But because I know that the thing that is most romantic to you is just doing little things for you. That's what you like. Yeah. You like to feel taken care of, like a little princess baby. True or false? True. Yeah.
And half princess, half baby.
Yeah. Half, but all dictator. And so yeah, and so those I know are the things that get me the most points.
Yeah, you do a great job of it. You've been an excellent husband of a pregnant lady.
Thank you.
You're taking great care of me.
Wow.
All of this is why I picked today's episode topic, which is our imperfect love story.
Wow.
And so much of how we ended up together is kind of the opposite of what people are told to look for and expect.
All right. Well, I think we have a pretty good love story, so I'm interested to hear how imperfect it is.
Oh no, am I going to get in trouble?
No, you're not going to get in trouble. I want to hear what you think.
You don't find it unusual, our love story?
Parts of it.
Okay.
Parts of it.
We'll push back wherever you feel necessary.
You know I will.
But before we dive into all of that, it's time for everyone's favorite segment, Marriage Moments.
So, why do you have so much shoulder movement when you sing?
Because the music comes from in my body. It's not just in my throat.
Okay. But it comes specifically from the shoulders sometimes?
Well, that's how I always dance. I'm a heavy shoulder dancer.
Right.
Because I can't control two different parts of my body at the same time. So the idea that I'm doing complicated upper body dance with complicated lower body dance, beyond me. So I have to focus on one part of the body, and that often is the shoulder.
So when you dance, you think about one movement at a time. You have to think about it. You're not just sort of being in the moment with the music.
Let's move on. So Marriage Moment is a part of the show where we share something in our marriage that's stuck with us.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it is revealing about the other person or about our dynamic, something that I think often leans positive, although we're still in the early stages of the show. And as we rapidly run out of ideas, we might have to turn negative.
Accusations.
Do you want to share yours first?
Absolutely, I do. So this is about...
I have a question. Before we met, did you ever say that? Would you ever have said absolutely I do before we met?
I have no idea. Maybe not.
I think that's an Allisonism.
All right. Fine.
But it's a fun one.
Yeah, it is. It's one of your better ones.
It's fun, yeah.
Yes. So my marriage moment this week is about hiding things from your partner. Finding things that you didn't know were around you this entire time. Because about a week ago, I'm lying in bed and getting ready to sleep, just being a peaceful, nice guy. And Allison says, "It's too cold in here." I say, "Okay, yeah, we can turn off the air or whatever." And she goes, "Hold on." And inside of the bed, she grabs a jacket. She had been storing a jacket inside the bed, unbeknownst to me. Somehow she had hidden it. And then she puts on her jacket and she goes, "Oh, this is better, but it's still too cold." And then she reaches in there and she grabs a pashmina.
My emotional support pashmina.
Why do you have an emotional support pashmina in our side of our bed? How long was that there before I knew about it?
You knew the emotional support pashmina has been sleeping with us for weeks.
I did, yeah, but at the time, I knew you had one. I didn't know you were stashing it in the bed.
My emotional support pashmina came about because we went to Huntington Gardens with our friends, and I was a little chilly, and so I bought a pashmina to wrap around me. And I was also still in the depths of my grief around my mom, and I just wanted, and you had been promising that you would buy me a stuffed animal, but you hadn't. And so I thought, well, this could be that for me. I could care for this pashmina the way I would a
Don't try to turn
animal.
This around. Why? How much stuff are you hiding inside of our bed? And like gadgets, snacks?
Never snacks.
Never snacks.
I don't think I've ever eaten in our bed. Have you?
No. So tell me, what's your marriage moment?
So, obviously a lot of people, I think, in their relationships focus on these big moments, these special days, like big trips you've put a lot of time into, like the wedding, all the stuff, birthdays. But one of the best days in our entire marriage was when we went shopping for a new couch.
Absolutely.
And we discovered just the most incredible mall in Toluca Lake.
I'm not even sure it was real. It could have been a mirage in the desert.
And there was no real reason why this would be one of our best days together.
Not just our best days together. Maybe one of the best days of my life.
We just had so much fun at this mall. And we had the dogs, and we didn't even buy a couch. We didn't buy anything.
The Our House people treated us like we were kings. And we were really two people who couldn't afford an Our House couch.
But yeah, it was just and I think it was just this lovely reminder that you just never know when one of your best days is going to be. Or when you're going to have such a wonderful time with your partner doing kind of something that is seemingly mundane.
Right. But it wasn't mundane because the mall was a palace.
The mall was incredible. Are you afraid to go back? Because I am.
Yeah, me too.
Because we haven't
What if
gone
it's not
back.
as good?
Yeah, what if it's not as good? And I remember the food court being absolutely amazing.
Unbelievable.
But we didn't get anything
And now
to
I
eat.
built it up in my mind to be like, this food cart Wolfgang Puck himself is making food there. They're grinding and growing the coffee beans. I don't know if it can live up to what's in.
We should never go back.
Yeah,
it's like trying to recapture the magic.
Yeah.
So this is exciting. We are going to have our first marriage moment that is not from us.
Huge, because the people are sick of us.
Episode 4, get out of here.
They're like, these two enough.
So one of our goals for the show is to share marriage moments from other couples, and this was submitted anonymously from someone we may or may not know in real life. Because as of this recording, the show has not been out in the world yet, and therefore people haven't had the opportunity to send an email to startermarriagepodcast@gmail.com.
All right, so what does Anonymous have to say?
While I was pregnant, I had a sneaking suspicion that I had gotten a hemorrhoid. I reluctantly asked my husband to take a look, and he said something like, "Yeah, that's a new one. The other one was always there." We had never discussed any hemorrhoid, so it was news to me that he had been tracking the status of my butthole. I was flattered, but also glad he had politely declined to remain silent about the other one all these years until I asked, and that he remained unfazed by the new one.
Wow.
Yeah, that's intimacy.
That is intimacy. So did it not, well, we can't ask, but I mean, that's so intimate to tracking hemorrhoids.
Right.
Wow.
I don't really understand what a hemorrhoid looks like.
It looks disgusting.
Really?
Yeah. It's veiny and gross.
All right. Is it big?
Can be small.
Would you like me to pull up an image of a hemorrhoid on the screen?
Episode 4. Really jumping the shark with hemorrhoid photos. Yeah, they're disgusting.
Yeah, maybe it'd be better for me not to know.
Yeah, you shouldn't know.
Okay.
But wow, that's love, baby.
That's love. And I also feel like, who knows where my pregnancy journey will bring us.
How many hemorrhoids?
How many hemorrhoids?
Do I have to clock
So you're
the
a little
hemorrhoids?
squeamish, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like, you don't like when I'm doing gross stuff.
Right. And you are surprisingly gross. People would think you're so clean or whatever, but no, Allison is quite gross.
What's gross?
All the hairs in our shower.
But that I can't help. It just falls out.
Well, it can help that you just put them wantonly all over the shower, just so that there's just hairs hanging everywhere.
I'm not made of time.
What?
It could take a long time to clean that after every shower.
All right, well, fine, but it's still gross.
I have had a relationship, though, where it bothered my partner, so I did clean it every time.
Yeah.
But it didn't. I decided you didn't care that much.
You decided that. Thank you for deciding that. I appreciate
Well, let
that.
me know if you want me to make that change.
All right, I will.
Great.
I'll deliberate.
What about my contact lenses?
That's disgusting. I find contact lenses everywhere in the house. How do you, are you just throwing contact lenses willy-nilly?
I take them off, but for some reason, even though we have a trash can in the bathroom, I never put them in the trash. I just put them right on the sink.
Yeah, it's gross.
And then somehow from the sink, they get tracked throughout the home.
Right.
Yeah. Sorry.
You're not sorry.
Whoosh. It's time. Live action transition.
Yeah, super cool.
Welcome back to Starter Marriage. It's time to pop the question. This is the part of the show where we dive into the main topic of the episode, which this week is our imperfect love story.
Ooh.
Do you think that's a hooky way to say it? Should I say not romanticizing romance?
What about our fucked up love story?
Yeah, ours, don't fall in love. So the origin of our love story is that I was engaged to someone else. I knew you were going to gasp.
Really?
Yeah, it was the right thing to do. Yes, I got engaged to someone in May of 2020. Then he abruptly left me in November of 2020. And it was devastating.
Yeah.
And then I flew home to New York to kind of grieve with my parents and like recover. It was also like pre-vaccine period of COVID. So we couldn't really go out or do anything. I just was like sitting in my parents' house all the time, kind of being like, but why?
Sobbing. And this is you, a person who has wanted to be married her entire life.
Right.
Was literally got engaged. He popped the question in the most, like, quite a romantic way, like with a little scavenger hunt around your house. And then he unceremoniously left you while the two of you were watching an episode of Lucifer on the couch.
Yeah, and I didn't get much explanation other than something was missing.
Right.
And I've never seen him in person since.
Wow.
We had like one phone call and one quick FaceTime and then like an email about the mail. And that was about it. I think he got off pretty easy. I mean, to be fair, I've written multiple books about it.
Right.
But I didn't hound him
Specifically. Yeah.
I've just kind of like made it a cornerstone of my career.
Right.
That I
Meanwhile,
got famously
he's getting
left.
DMs all the time from your fans.
So when I'm back in New York, I'm like, okay, I need to get back into dating because I'm starting to like believe all these things that are harmful. I was like, I'm never going to find love again. Like all the good ones are taken. Like I wanted to like get back on the apps as sort of like an exposure therapy to like remind myself that there are other good people out there.
Right.
And so we matched on Hinge in February of 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Take it away.
So you had 2 dates that weekend, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had a date with...
FaceTime dates.
Because
I set my Hinge for LA because I knew I was eventually going back to LA.
One was with a doctor.
Yeah.
And the other one was me.
Right.
Look who's standing here. Last man standing. No, so yeah, so similar kind of thing. I had been in a 4-year relationship where she left, maybe not quite as abruptly as your ex, but
hard to beat the abruptness.
Yeah, but still upsetting after 4 years to leave without really trying to work on it or anything. So I understood where you were coming from because my first year of getting back into things was like kind of difficult. But I had started off the new year deciding I was going to get on the apps again, and I had been on several dates. But when I saw Allison's profile, I just was like, oh, she's going to be my girlfriend. I just knew it.
The cockiness of that.
I even waited. Well, because you liked me first on it. So I knew if I said yes, that you were going to be my girlfriend. I don't know what it is.
Did you know I was going to be your wife?
No, but I knew you were going to be my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And so I even waited to say yes to it till later in the day because I figured, like, I bet we're going to talk. And so I waited. I got home, said yes to it. Immediately, you messaged me. Great, incredible banter. I don't even eat dinner that night because...
I didn't immediately message you. You messaged me.
Okay, I guess I messaged you, but you responded immediately.
Yeah, I was very available.
And and yeah, I mean, we like chat for like 2 hours or something, and then I like didn't even eat dinner that night because it was just like instant connection. And then you had to go on your stupid date with that doctor guy, but then we FaceTimed on a Sunday, and we were hitting it off immediately. And it was really terrific. It was easy. Mm-hmm. And
I did cry on the date.
Yeah, you did cry.
Yeah. Because you asked me what had happened with my broken engagement.
Right.
And then I was still on that level of like trauma where just like talking about it made me cry.
Right.
So, that right there, you're kind of told as a woman, don't cry on your first date. But hey, it can work out.
Maybe that was the thing all along that was missing. He just wanted to see you cry on more dates. Yeah. And, I didn't know so much about Allison because when we were first texting, I was like, hey, what's your last name? Because she referenced all these projects and stuff. And she was like, you're not allowed to look. You can get 90 we haggled down to like 90 seconds. I was allowed to Google her. And you were afraid I was going to find the
broken engagement.
Right. But instead, I found out that
I'd had a nose job.
Right. And so that was, I thought that was the big secret. But I guess not. So I didn't really care.
You were completely unfazed from the fact that I was like a little less than 3 months out from a broken engagement.
Right. But my thing was that, oh, well, I don't know if we're going to get married.
Right.
But like, here's a person who wants to date, who I obviously have great chemistry with. And I've been through this before. And I remember all this pressure to like not bring up the previous person who just broke your heart. Like, because you want to just pretend like it's cool and you're past that. But actually, you need to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I didn't feel terribly threatened about it at all.
Well, I think that's misconception number one. Well, misconception number two. The first is that you can't cry on a first date.
Right, yeah.
Misconception number two is that you have to be fully over someone to start seeing someone new. Because in no way, shape, or form was I fully over my ex.
Right.
Like, I was still very much in love with him, very much still processing it. I credit you with being one of the people that helped me process it the most.
Thank you. Yeah. We'd neither of us really believe in like, there's only one person for you. And, like, obviously you had something with him and I had something with my ex and it's important and significant.
But I'm funnier.
Than her, yes, you are. You're much funnier than she is. She thinks she's funny, but she's really not. She has a lot of other virtues, but you're by far funnier. But like, yeah. So you have to talk about these things because otherwise you're not really getting to know the person. You're getting to know like a performance of the person who's just like totally over the ex and it's,
yeah, I couldn't have actually gotten to know you if I was hiding my grief.
Right.
So our first month of dating was long distance, not having met in person.
Right.
That's weird.
Yeah, that is weird. And then I had to make the decision of a lifetime. because right when I had another girl who I had a great date with over FaceTime, I told her, because of COVID and stuff, when you're back, I was just going to be with you, Allison. I was just going to date you. Because you kind of used that, I think, to kind of get us to be exclusive sooner rather than later. True or false?
I didn't.
Okay.
No, I didn't know you were talking to other people.
Yeah, I was. And then, right before I'm about to delete Hinge, this girl who I was in a French class with, an adult French class, to be clear.
Which gives real insight into single John's life.
Sophie is her name, and we matched. I said, "Oh my God, I had a crush on this girl, for the last couple of years when we were in these classes. And what do I do? And do I pursue this French girl? She's not actually French, but she spoke better French than me, or do I double down and I put all my chips in with Allison
before we'd met in person.
Before we met in person, and I had my buddy Josh over, and we were having dinner, and he said, "Man, I was struggling. I was weighing the pros and the cons. I was speaking in French at length in dramatic monologues over red wine and a cigarette."
Oh God!
And Josh said, "You're crazy, man, if you don't go with Allison."
Wow. He just knew?
He said, "I haven't seen you this excited in years over a girl. If you just do this for some girl from your French class." And
then he was the best man at our wedding.
He was.
So he really called it. We should have given him some cash.
We should have. He went on to be the best man at our wedding. And Sophie actually was on the cover of Sports Illustrated.
No, she wasn't. If that was true, I would have been like, you made a mistake. Yeah, so we had all of this pressure on this like burgeoning.
You're close enough.
Okay, relationship.
Sophie definitely would have pronounced it correctly.
But we hadn't met in person, and so that was like very nerve-wracking because it was like, what if we weren't attracted to each other, or we didn't like each other, or like the vibes were off?
Yeah.
Were you worried about that?
Definitely.
Yeah. But then I was like, okay, I'm going to fly home to LA, finally meet this guy, restart my life, reclaim my freedom and my future.
Huge for you.
And then my knee dislocated, and I collapsed on the floor of the JFK airport bathroom.
That's correct.
And that was horrifying.
Horrifying.
I collapsed on the floor. I was in unbelievable pain, and I could see that my kneecap was not where it was supposed to be. And so without thinking, I just whacked that baby into place.
You're not supposed to do that.
You're not. No. You're supposed to wait for a doctor to do that.
Right.
But in looking back, like, what else was I going to do? I couldn't have stayed in that level of pain.
Right. So you just instinctively snapped it back in.
So I'm very good in a crisis.
All right. So then what happens?
What should have happened was I should have gone back to my parents' house.
That's correct.
But they told me that my suitcase was on the plane and it was going to take off whether I was on the plane or not. And I was also like, I wanted to finally meet you.
So it was about me.
It was a bit about you. I've never admitted that before.
Wow. Because all this time it's been about the suitcase. You never would admit that it was about me. I thought this was just my stuff. I got to get my stuff. My stuff's on the plane.
That was a good amount about you.
All right.
Oh, now I'm embarrassed. I hope this works out. And so I get on the plane, and then here's the twist of a lifetime. That doctor that I'd had that FaceTime, the one other guy I had a FaceTime with, he was on the plane too.
That's so crazy.
But we were both wearing masks, and he asked me about the overhead compartment space, and I just ignored him or gave a very quick answer and hoped he didn't recognize me.
Wow.
Yeah. It was so many bad things were happening to me in that day.
And so when you texted me and I got your text, and I'll be honest with you, when you're like, I just dislocated my knee in the airport of JFK, and then, later things also occurred that we'll get to. And I was a little like, this girl might be a little much.
Yeah. Well, the later things was I subluxed in LAX.
Right.
So my knee gave out again in LAX, but it went back in on its own, so I didn't fall to the ground. But I did scream loudly in a crowded bathroom.
That's cool. That's rock and roll.
And then I was but it was this weird moment, right? Because in a lot of ways, you were my boyfriend, but we had never met in person.
Right.
So I had this major injury, but I couldn't be can you help me? Because that would have been our first time meeting.
Yeah.
So I had to call my friends and be can you get me a cane and crutches? And if we were far along in our emotional relationship, but because we hadn't met in real life, I had to be okay, I got to get better first physically before I can meet you. It was very weird.
Yeah.
Did you want to come see me that day, or it felt too much?
I don't remember now. I think I might have offered, but I also was I think you were kind of clear that your friends were helping you out and things were in motion there. And so, yeah, I also didn't want to push it, I don't know. It was a strange position to be in, I think. So.
And then later that night I lost my dog.
Sugar, yeah.
Yeah, I lost Sugar. So in one day
I remember when I got that, I was like, what's going on here? Is this a person who's just constant crisis? Because how do you lose the dog?
Well, it turns out I might not have.
You never did. To be clear, you never did.
There is some evidence that Sugar was actually in the lobby of my apartment building the whole time, and I just didn't realize it.
That is correct.
Or someone found Sugar and put her in the lobby, where we discovered her later.
That didn't happen.
It could have. I never checked the tapes because I didn't want to know.
You didn't want to know. And that's really the evidence, all the evidence we need. Because deep down, you know that Sugar never did anything. She just stayed in the lobby the whole time. And you were just nuts that day.
So that was an interesting part of this whole journey with you, is that I had done all of this work to become more stable, to be better in relationships. I mean, I wrote a whole book about how much my OCD and anxiety and depression had gotten in the way of me being able to be a good partner and not get basically suicidal upon breakups and all of this stuff. And so I by the time I met my ex, I was in this pretty great place. But then when I met you, I was a disaster. I
complete
met
disaster.
you during a real low point in my life.
Right.
But it created this interesting dynamic where I didn't have to present as someone that had everything together.
Well, you certainly didn't present that way. And so another wild thing about our love story is that when I finally met you, like a week later, we postponed it a week because your mom flew out and took care of you that week, and then
my mom was like, I'll just go in the second bedroom and you guys can have your date.
So your mom, just pretend I'm not even here.
Right.
I would not have gone for that. But when I finally met you a week later, you had a cane or like crutches. No, you had a cane.
Yeah.
And a knee brace.
Yeah.
And so this was not, this was an interesting first unveiling of you.
That part didn't bump for me. Because, like, you know, people are differently abled and, you know, people.
But you're saying it didn't cross your mind that the first time you saw me, yes, of course, people are differently abled. No one is judging that. I'm just saying that you had spent your entire dating life caneless.
That part, honestly, I wasn't worried about.
Wow.
I never thought that you would be, like, less attracted to me because I had a cane and a knee brace.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
You were?
No, but I thought it was funny, and I thought you would be thinking about it.
I thought it was funny, but I wasn't, like, worried that was, like, gonna... Because to me, if that was, like, a turnoff for you, then, like, that like, makes it obvious that we're not meant to be together. That your expectations of, like, what a partner is not realistic to life.
All right.
Yeah, I wasn't worried about that part. I was worried that I wouldn't like you.
One cute thing that Allison did when we first started dating was that she bought like a handle of bourbon because I like bourbon. And when I would finish work for the day or whatever, and I would come over to see her, she would pour me a glass. But like the first time you did it for me, I don't know if you remember this, you poured way too much bourbon. You poured like as if it was like juice.
Because I don't drink.
Yeah.
So I have no reference
You
point.
hand me this whiskey glass that's like mostly full. It's like, this girl's trying to fuck me up. Like, I can't drink that much. And so we put it back in.
You probably did.
What?
Did
No,
you drink?
there's no way I drank that much. No. But we dialed it back to a more reasonable amount. But it was very cute.
And then the beginning of our relationship, I was still getting over my ex. I was still like, I remember being so angry that I had to get to know another person.
Yeah, that you had to start over again.
Right. That like I couldn't just like be my full self, that like we couldn't like openly talk about my stomach issues, that like, you know, I had to like get to know you, that we lived in different places. Like, it was so annoying to me because it's so convenient to live with your partner.
Yeah.
But like having to like travel downtown. So all of this like period that I think a lot of people have as like this like happy honeymoon period, I was just like very mad.
Annoyed.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm falling in love. This is so shitty.
Yeah, like it was like, oh, I just gotta get to the part where we're more in a relationship. Like,
yeah, the day-to-day bullshit.
yeah, it was like, wow, I gotta get through until we live together. This sucks. Because that was what I was most comfortable with. Like, I really loved living with a partner. I loved like being life partners, sharing a life rather than like dating, which I think some people really like dating.
Definitely.
But I didn't.
Right.
And so I was just like kind of resentful that I was like back there. But what I'm really glad about is that like I pushed through that discomfort.
Yeah.
You know, because there's like a version of me where I would have been like, this is too hard. This is like, or I would have like put too much emphasis on like that I wasn't over my ex. So like I would have been like, well, that must mean that I don't love John enough, or that the connection John and I have isn't strong enough, or, you know, but I was just, I think I just like become incredibly like realistic.
Yeah.
And I had enough boyfriends and done enough to realize that there was something so good here that I just had to like get through the period of discomfort to like get to the part where I could kind of like relax.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm trying to think, like, it's funny, like, in many ways, this story, I know it's like an imperfect love story, you're saying, but in many ways, it sounds like the plot of a movie, right? Like, you get dumped. Oh my God, I never want to do this again. The meet cute in person, and I have a cane. but I learned something along the way. I mean, in many ways, it is kind of this, like, story that comes with growth and excitement and some drama and some gross knee action. Interestingly for me, like if you look at the story from my perspective, it's much less dramatic. You know what I mean? Like I met you on Hinge, we got along great. And I know there was a lot of like things going on in your head that were complicated, but it was, other than like maybe becoming exclusive a little sooner than maybe I would have if it hadn't been COVID and some other things, like there wasn't a lot of drama. I'd say that for me, like if your story is a movie, my story was more of like a novel or something, because it was more like I think you were ready to commit and move forward as quickly as possible, because that's what you wanted. And one, I have always been a little slower with that stuff, like processing my feelings and wanting to enjoy each stage of the relationship along the way. But you had a real end goal in mind. Like, I want to get married. And I expect success in this relationship looks like getting married. And that had never really been a part of my dating life. It had usually been like, we'll see where this goes. And then if you're dating long enough, you start to talk about it. But so for me, it was like a getting over that and pushing through some discomfort on my end, but also not just about me, but also about, that's when it was like, okay, I want to make sure she's not just swapping out guys, right? Because I remember when my ex and I broke up, it was like, it was like 4 years. We were we lived together. It practically felt like we were married. And I remember my first feeling when I went back on the dating scene, it was like, I just want my life back as quickly as possible.
Right.
And I think I put like a bunch of like things to that effect, like on my dating profile, and like looked at it months later and was like, you were in no position to be dating my wife. Like, you need to calm down and tell a joke. And so, yeah, so I had to navigate that, of like slowing things down a little bit at times. And then getting used to the fact that you're like so enmeshed with your parents. That's not something that I have. And it was just interesting. I mean, my ex was very enmeshed with her parents, so I guess it wasn't that different, but it's a little bit of a culture shock. I mean, you called your parents every day.
Yeah. And then my mom died, so you didn't have to worry about it anymore.
You still talk to your dad every day.
That's true. But it was an opportunity for a dead mom joke, so I had to take it.
Yeah. Understandable.
I remember we were at dinner once and you said to me, what would you do if your ex came back tomorrow? And I remember I was like, I panicked in the moment. I was like, I guess I'll just tell him the truth. And I said to you, I don't know what I would do, because in that moment I still didn't know. And then you went, okay. And then you just kept eating your dinner. Like, I feel like most people would have been so threatened or uncomfortable with that, and you could have cared less.
I don't understand being threatened by that. This person is gone, first of all. And two, I've been there. I know surely you have these, everyone has fantasies of their ex coming crawling back. And so, you don't know what you would do, but we were hitting it off quite well. And I think you had said things to the effect of like, certain things about our new relationship were better than your previous relationship. And so, yeah, maybe I'm either stupid or overly confident. Like, cause I was just like, yeah, it's fine.
You though said at one point that you started to feel more threatened once we were more serious.
Oh, really?
And that was sort of like once I was kind of over it. You said that it was starting to pop up for you a little bit.
Do you remember the context?
No, maybe I made that up.
Huh. That's interesting. I don't know.
That doesn't feel familiar
It
to you?
doesn't ring a bell for me.
All right, it was one of my dirty little lies that my brain created.
No, I mean maybe the fact that like you've written multiple books where you talk about it. It's a part of, you're a professional storyteller and it's a great story. So it gets repeated again and again and again. And so this guy is part of our story and a part of your shtick, you know? And so maybe there's something there, but no. I've never felt jealous of him.
And then our journey to the altar was unconventional.
Oh yeah.
In that we were planning our wedding before we were even engaged.
Yeah. Right.
Because we went to your sister's wedding in June of 2022.
Right.
And when you're at a wedding, you start talking about
Weddings.
and what you would want to do and what your wedding would look like. And I have 2 nieces, and I knew that like it would make the most sense for us to get married in August when they were done with camp and available. And at that point, it was June. And I was like, if we want to get married by next August, we kind of have to start planning that now.
Right.
Which is a very romantic approach.
Yeah, just laying out all the things that need to be done.
And so I was like, well, like, can we look at this? We just started to like dip our toe into like looking at venues. And then I told my parents.
And then
we were off to the races.
That's the thing. Your parents are just like you, where it's like, oh, we might do this. We're just racing in that direction.
And my mom had the idea of us getting married in Santa Barbara.
Great idea. Love that, Ruth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mom. And so they were in town. We like went to Santa Barbara. We looked at this one place, and then we like went and looked at another place in Santa Barbara. And we like booked the venue before you had even proposed.
First of all, I just want to say that whole experience was very much your family and me, which is that we went up to Santa Barbara. They looked at the first venue, and everyone was ready to sign on the dotted line. And I said, no. I do not think this is going to work.
It would have been a horrible venue.
An hour later, everyone's like, you're right. That was not good. They were ready to your dad was reaching for his wallet.
Really?
And I was like, no, we're not doing this. This has fundamental flaws that need
there was
to be
like
addressed.
one elevator, and it would have like taken like an hour for people to get to the different locations.
We cannot do this. And like we need to, and it's just the first place. Like we're not even engaged. And we went with the second place we saw.
Yeah.
But the second place was actually fit our idea of how we wanted it to go. And so.
And we hired a wedding planner, and then we were on a Zoom with the wedding planners, and they were like, what was your engagement story? And we had to be like, it hasn't happened yet.
Did we really meet with a wedding planner before?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's bananas.
Like we like broke every rule. And with the ring, we like went to a store together, and I picked out my own ring.
Right. The first day we went ring shopping just to look, we picked up the ring because it was exactly what you wanted.
Right.
And so we bought it. Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing, too. Like, this was not a matter of me not being ready to commit, but there was some pressure because he had done this wonderful, scavenger hunt thing when he proposed to you, the first guy, that I didn't want it just to be like, all right, well, you want to get married? Like, I wanted to do something nice and romantic.
You wanted to one-up him.
Absolutely.
And you did.
I did.
You did a great job.
You're damn right I did. And so I planned our engagement on my birthday, which comes up in October. We like to go up to Santa Barbara because we love it there. And so we were going to meet 2 of my friends for my birthday at
birthday
Osby.
dinner.
Yeah, at Osby, the Italian restaurant in Venice. And Allison had suggested we meet them there. And so I said, this is perfect. She suggested it.
Oh, I did?
Yeah, you suggested the place.
Nice.
And you suggested that we go to for my birthday there. And so then I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, this is how I'm going to do it. And so then I rented out the top floor of Osby. That's like a event space.
A private room.
Private room, yeah. And invited all of your friends. And so then when we went and we saw my 2 friends, they led us up the stairs. I couldn't believe you weren't onto something.
I knew it was going to happen that weekend.
Right.
Because I knew that like we were nearing the end of the year. We'd had this agreement that it would be by the end of the year. We were also like pretty far deep into wedding planning.
Right.
I picked out the ring. It was sort of getting to a point where it was like, why isn't it not happened? You know?
Right.
So I was like, okay, so it will happen in Santa Barbara. It will happen this weekend. I like went and got my nails done. But I had no idea it was going to happen that night.
Well, you were also earlier that day, you were like, I'm going to get my nails done for this weekend in case we're taking any pictures of my hand this weekend.
I also kept telling you that 4 p.m. was a nice time to propose every day.
Yeah, absolutely. You're like, this is a great time to propose. 4 p.m. What a time. You kept threatening to go into my office and get the ring, but it wasn't in the office. It was literally right next to your bedside the whole time.
Yeah. But so I was not on to you at all. And on the way to dinner, I was like, I'm not going to talk tonight. I'm too tired.
Yeah. You're like, this has been the worst day. I don't even want to go to this stupid dinner.
No, I didn't say it like that. It was your birthday dinner. But I was like, I'm very tired. I can't go.
I'm not going to say, and I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to say a word.
Yeah, I'm not going to say a word.
And I was like, promise me. Swear it. You will keep quiet and not say a word tonight. See how that goes. I know. And then we got there and we were like slightly late for the reservation because I was doing that purposefully so that just in case there's any late stragglers. And you were like, drop me off and I'll get the table. And I was like, no, let's just park the car. And you're like insisting that I drop you off, but I'm just not listening to you. And then I'm like trying to pay for the parking and you're just going ahead of me to get the thing. And so like, I hope I paid for the parking. I was just like, she can't walk in without the proposal. I mean, at least I knew you were clueless.
I was so clueless.
And then when we got there, because you were always insisting that we eat outside, I had to, you said, is it an outside reservation? I said, I went there and then I went up to the front desk and I said, just say that you can't seat us outside, please. I'm going to pretend I'm about to propose to my fiance or to my girlfriend. And they said, oh, okay. And I said, oh, I screwed it up. It's an indoor table. And then you were just kind of like, fine. And then they let us up and all your friends were there. And I did it right there. We did it live.
We did, and then we had this beautiful dinner with everyone.
Yeah.
So it was basically an engagement and an engagement party on the same night.
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
Wonderful.
So I feel like in the grand scheme of things, not a bad story.
No, it is a great story, but it's not what you're told to expect.
Right.
Right? Because like me still being hung up on someone else, us like not like being in person for a while. And so like the time that we finally met in person, like I wasn't excited. I like wanted to throw up because there was like so much stakes on it. And I was just like so worried that it was going to go bad. And then I'd be like, it would just be like so heartbreaking for it to not have worked out.
Yeah.
To be planning the wedding before we got engaged.
Right.
Like there was just stuff that like isn't, I think, like the way we're and the amount of like conflicted emotions along the way for both of us.
Right.
Of like, is me wanting to move at this speed, you wanting to move at that speed, like just all this different stuff. And like there were different levels of discomfort along the way. It wasn't like, oh, and we just knew from like the first moment that this was what it was going to be.
Right. And I think too that our obsession with stories and like the story being good, it's like it gives the courtship, it gives this union, this relationship, it imbues it with like meaning.
Mm-hmm.
It imbues it with special purpose. And that is both romantic.
It can be dangerous.
But can be dangerous because you're anchored to this narrative about what my relationship was and how it came about that, yeah, it can box you in and rob you of like exploring new parts of your relationship, I think, or it can put undue expectations on other people, but also yourself.
What I found like lovely about our journey is I think sometimes people are like, oh, it was so good in the beginning.
Yeah.
And it's like always like trying to recreate what it was in the beginning.
Right. That feeling of excitement.
And because I was so conflicted and heartbroken at the beginning that like now, like our relationship now is so much more enjoyable.
Right.
Like I don't want to go back to that period of time. Like I feel like us really knowing each other, us being best friends, us being life partners, us raising these dogs together. Like I feel like I now understand what it means when it's like, oh, the relationship, you're just so much more attached to the later versions of the relationship because there's so much more there.
Right.
There's more history.
Right.
Because I don't believe in the concept of soulmates,
Right.
but I do believe that you can meet someone and through building a life together, they like become your soulmate.
Yeah. Instead of a story of the beginning determining your future, it's like a story that you're building together.
Right. And it gets richer and richer as it goes.
Yeah. And it's messy and probably takes zigzags. You know, the thing about a story that is like distorting is that it's you, like anyone who's ever written a story, you shave off inconvenient parts of it. You trim the fat.
Right.
You shape it in a way to have meaning. And sometimes life isn't just one coherent story message. It's just all over the place and messy. And
I think a lot of people, when talking about their relationships, will do that, where they will shave off things, and in the hindsight, it looks like it was this simple, easy thing. So then when you're going through falling in love with someone, getting married to someone, committing to somebody, it could be like, but my journey here is so much bumpier than everyone else's.
right.
When really other people's was too. They just like either forgot that part or like don't share that part with you.
Right. The way that they access memory, they access their memories in a way that's shaped by the story.
Right, or by where they are now.
Yeah.
Okay, are you ready for our final segment?
Absolutely.
It's time to play my soon-to-be patented game show, Stay or Leave, where I give you a hypothetical scenario, and you decide if I behave this way in the future, if you would stay or leave me. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I decide that being married to you no longer aligns with my values
Okay.
because it makes me too vulnerable to another person's financial decisions.
Oh.
I don't want to break up, but I do want to get divorced and then just keep living together as partners rather than spouses. Would you stay or leave?
Wait, am I making irrational financial decisions?
No, I've just decided that marriage is too risky of an endeavor.
And so you just want to get a divorce,
Right.
but everything stays the same.
Yes.
Have you come into a lot of money that you're trying to keep me out of?
No.
I think I would be very hurt. I would leave.
You would leave?
I would leave. I would be very hurt.
Even if I said it's just a principle thing, it's not a personal thing?
Yeah.
Wow.
I really would. Sometimes I'm joking about that, and it's funny because at the beginning I was not
You didn't
like,
care about marriage.
I didn't care. I was like, get married, don't get married, whatever, man. And so, but now that we're married, for you to divorce me just because you aren't sure, you don't want to be financially vulnerable to me? What?
Or I just like no longer believe in the institution of marriage.
I don't know. I guess it would be circumstance specific, but I would have real reservations about why are we, what is the point of this?
Mm-hmm.
And it would feel too much like your sudden whims are dictating
Right.
this huge thing in my life as opposed to like a thing we talked about together.
Can I keep both the dogs?
No, I get Sugar.
Damn it. No, you can't because I promised Sugar that I would be with her forever.
Sugar does not care about that promise. Sugar does not care. She does not remember it. She would prefer to be with me.
Wow.
Sorry, it came out.
All right. Well, we're going to end this on a very contentious note.
Thanks for tuning into the final episode.
Thank you all so much for joining us for today's episode. We will be back next Monday with another full-blown episode of Starter Marriage. You can subscribe to the show, share the show, give us a 5-star rating.
And you can also check out the video of our show at youtube.com/justbetweenus.
And if you want to submit your own marriage moment for us to read on the show, and it can be about hemorrhoids, it can be about something else, you can send an email to startermarriagepodcast@gmail.com. That's startermarriagepodcast@gmail.com.
And if you just can't get enough of Allison, and you're like, I need more Allison in my life. You're a little like Phantom here, our other dog. Why don't you pick up a copy of I Do, I Think, Conversations About Modern Marriage by Allison Raskin, sold everywhere where books are sold. Or if you're like, you know what, I've had enough of her advice. I want to get a little bit into some of the wacky adventures of Allison. You can pick up her rom-com, I Do, I Think.
Nope. What's my rom-com?
Fuck. Save the date. Should we keep that?
Yeah, keep that in.
Yeah, so Save the Date, which is the new rom-com that Allison just published. It's terrific. Check it out.
And as we always say, because it is the most meaningful way to depart.
So because we talked about it today, it's because I like to speak French.
You like to speak French,
and I will sometimes speak French to the dogs.
Right.
And it, au revoir, turned into, eventually,
au revoir.